Hey guys, Samuel Schmitt with Team Founder Arms here. We got a couple of videos for you today on some lessons that I learned shooting the PRS Midwest Series this year. Had a pretty good finish to it, was lucky to wind up actually winning the Sportsman Division for the Midwest this year, but we had a rocky start. And so hopefully some of the lessons I learned can help you avoid some pitfalls as you continue your long range journey. So the first thing we're going to talk about today and the topic of this video is tracking tests. And one of the principles that I landed on this year is that before we compete or do work with an optic, that optic needs to be tracking tested. So, tell you a little story. So we had our Rifleman 1 class up here earlier in the summer. And at the end of the class, I let one of the students play around with my Tikka. And I gave him the holdover for 1,000 yards. As I was watching him through my glass, I noticed that the data that I gave him was not what I was seeing downrange. It was about 0.7 mils off. And I thought to myself, that's odd. But I did not take any action to fix it. I kind of wrote it off. We did some other things. We adjusted for it. And I took that gun and shot a match with it the next week. So first thing is, if you see odd things, fix them. Don't go to a match and expect everything to be fine. Hope is not a good strategy for competition shooting. And it proved to be a bad strategy for this match. I wound up placing the worst I've ever placed. I think I got like 23 hits out of 100 possible hits in that match. It was brutal. And as I was driving home, I was thinking to myself, either something in my equipment is broken or I am badly broken. And my emotions were certainly broken. So we had to start doing a diagnosis. And so I wound up going, I changed some things on the setup. I pulled out the action with the barrel that I knew worked, which is this proof barrel. I know it's a good barrel. I went and checked all the torque values, which is the first thing you should do if something's going wrong with your precision rifle. Something's not adding up, check the action screws, check the scope base, check the rings, make sure everything's torqued to spec. It was. Then I shot a 10-round group. And so that's just to make sure that the system itself is accurate. And that came in at like 0.7 inches for a 10-round group. So I said, okay, that's odd. So then I ran a tracking test. And what I found the tracking test was that the scope I was using was not tracking properly. So with precision scopes, they're adjustable, right? So we've talked about this before. When you turn the turrets on the scope, it's going to adjust your point of aim by a certain value. The turret should correlate to the value in the scope. So if you have an MOA scope, it's going to move your point of impact a certain amount of MOAs, or a mil scope, a certain amount of mils. What I was finding was, as I was adjusting those turrets, it was not moving the point of impact as much as it should. Hence, at 1,000 yards, we get almost a mil off. So I pulled that scope off the gun, put a different scope on the gun. That scope, the next scope, I noticed the reticle was actually canted. Scope was level, gun was level, reticle was canted about 5 degrees, which is a problem because then when I'm adding things, when I'm making adjustments off it and dialing, right, I'm not getting the right, basically the ruler is at an angle, so I'm not getting the right input to put into the reticles. So 2 broken scopes there. My teammate who I shoot NRL Hunter with, he also experienced 2 broken scopes this year. So between the 2 of us, 4 scopes, all from good manufacturers. The takeaway is we just have to tracking test our scopes. So how do we do that? Well, this scope right here is a new scope from Leopold that I got a couple weeks ago. And so I took it to the range a couple days ago and ran it through a tracking test. And so I'll show you how we do that. First thing we do, like we talked about, is we test the accuracy of the system, make sure the system is inherently accurate. So this is a 10-round group off of this 6.5 gas gun. It comes in at 0.8 inches. That's important for us to know because this is where we can figure out if something's loose and adjust it here before we get to the tracking test. We're essentially isolating out that during the tracking test, we're just testing tracking, not the system's accuracy. So we know that we have 0.8 accuracy, and we know that we're not going to panic if we see anything under 0.8 inches of variance on the tracking test, because that would just be within the margin of error of our system. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go down range to 100 yards, and we are going to take a plumb line and we're going to hang a target. So I have a tracking test target here. This is one that I got off of Sniper's Hide. If you don't want to buy a specific tracking test target, you can do this with IPSC with some orange stickers on it. Just measure out the stickers and make sure that when you do the math, it correlates to one full adjustment in your scope. So if you're shooting an MOA scope, it's one full MOA. If you're shooting a mil scope, it's one full mil. So in this test that I ran here, I would use a plumb line to line up these two indicators to make sure this target is perfectly level. And then we start at the bottom. So we shoot a group of 3 rounds at the bottom just to get a base. Then I adjust up. I adjust up 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Shot another group of 3. And again, how many rounds you fire depends upon the inherent accuracy of your system. If your system is a 2 MOA gun or a 3 MOA gun, you're probably going to have to fire more rounds to get data you can use, right? But this is roughly a ½ inch here, and it is from our initial start. It's less than a ½ inch off of our initial group, which means it's within the margin of error of the system accuracy, which means we're good to go. So then I went up another 4 to 9, and you'll notice that we're tracking straight up. So it's tracking straight up, and it's within a 1/4 of an inch from where we started. So we're tracking up, right, and we're tracking true. All the clicks are that would be these are 0.1 clicks, so 90 clicks, and we're accurate. So we're within at least 1% margin of error. We're good to go. Then I adjusted the windage, came right 1. Everything looks good. Came back right 1, and then back down and shot a second group. And the second group was layered pretty much exactly right on top of the first group. So the gun tracks true and also returns to 0. So if we see weirdness downrange, what we've done now is we've eliminated the idea that the scope not tracking right is not the problem. If I was still having problems after running a tracking test, or I hadn't identified the problem yet, the next thing I would do is I would run a waterline drill, which essentially we take a larger target downrange. We spray paint halfway through it, and we shoot at that spray paint line, and we see if we impact above or below it. That would tell us if our ballistic data that our computer is giving us is true or not. But that was not needed in this scenario. This test showed that this particular scope, because I was just testing the scope. I've shot this gun several times before, different matches and stuff. But this scope is good to go, so now I can take that and shoot that in matches. So when you do a tracking test, when you get an optic, or when you've had problems. Ideally, when you get an optic, so you don't have to spend several match fees and ammunition for matches to figure out that you have a problem. But yeah, that's how you do a tracking test. I would probably not run tracking tests on red dots or LPVOs that you're not going to be dialing, because if you're not going to be dialing them, in a match or in a tactical situation or what have you, there's probably no need to test tracking if it's just a set and forget hold only thing. But precision rifle scopes, we run tracking tests on because we will be dialing them for our matches or whatever application we have. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below, or drop your scope horror stories in the comments below. We have some counseling we'll send you your way. We'll pray for you, because I certainly could have used it this year. Yeah, hopefully this is helpful for you guys. I'm Samuel Schmitt with Team Founder Arms. See you at the range.